Welcome as we continue our study of Colossians in chapter 1, verse 11, which is a continuation of Paul's prayer that began in verse 9. Being empowered with all power according to the might of his glory, to all patience and long suffering with joy. So, if you look in the KJV, it says strengthened with all might, and these two words are actually might here is really more properly translated as power. It's dunamis. It's the root here, and then strengthened. So dunamu is the verb form of it, and you can see that KJV actually says to enable, strengthen. And then if we look at might, so dunamis is miraculous power or ability. Word study goes on to say accomplishing ability. So dunamis, we get the word dynamite from that. If you think about dynamite, when it explodes, it's not something you want to be near. It's going to change everything in its immediate environment. And that sort of common theme for the word power in the various definitions of power in physics today still reside. So we see that P equals force times velocity. So power is force times velocity. So if the velocity is zero, the power is zero. All right. Doesn't matter if there's a force, there has to be a velocity as well. So there has to be change in order for there to be power. And if it doesn't matter what kind of power we're looking at, electrical, rotational, linear, doesn't matter. There always has to be velocity. There always has to be flow or movement. So why is that important? So with power comes change to the internal part of the system as well as to the immediate environment. That's not a sometimes thing. All right. If there is no change, then there's no velocity. 0 times anything is 0. That means power is not present. All right. So the Holy Spirit is the source of power in us. All right. It's not a come and go thing. It's not a sometimes thing. If that power is there, there is always change. All right. Both within you, in your character, because remember the Spirit is the source of God's, or the representation of God's character in us. So it's a source of power in us. And therefore it's there. It's going to cause change in us. All right. Strength is, here it's actually translated power in the KJV, which is not correct. They kind of switch these two. I'm not sure why they do that, but occasionally they do that in the KJV. But it is kratos. There's another word that is probably a synonym. We don't really understand the difference between the two. You see that also in Paul's prayer in Ephesians 1, and that's ishus. They both kind of represent some kind of force or some strength, something like that. Again, we don't really understand the complete differences, and we're not going to tear into that right now. Those things, that power, as well as the maturity and the fruit that we talked about, coming from the spirit of wisdom and knowledge that we see in 9 and 10, all right, those lead to patience and long suffering. So patience here is upomone, which is upo is to under and mone is bear. And so it's really to underbear. And you could probably translate that. Typically, you're going to see it translated as patience. Maybe steadfastness is another way. And then long suffering, which is macrothumia. It really, so macro is long, and then thumia is for wrath. So it's really to say far from wrath. And then also joy here, which is kara, and it's just it's joy or gladness. So we'll continue in verse 12 with Paul's prayer and discuss these things just a little bit more.